Hi, and welcome to the Reiki from the Farm podcast, brought to you by me, Pam Allen-LeBlanc from Hidden Brook Farm. I am a scientist, a businesswoman, and a licensed Reiki master teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training. Each week in this podcast, you'll be entertained as you learn about a wide variety of relevant Reiki topics, helping you become a more knowledgeable and effective Reiki practitioner. We caution you, though, this podcast may also dramatically improve your life, and we are so happy that you're here. On this podcast, I am talking with Reiki master teacher Brett Bevell, who also is in charge of a lot of the programming, I believe, at Omega Institute. Brett, you're an author of several books and now a card deck. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, Pam.
It's so nice to have you here, Brett, and I'm excited to talk about your recent card deck, as well as your books. We can talk about all of it, really. Just to let everybody know what we have going on at the farm, in August is our whale classes on Campobello Island. So we've got a licensed Reiki level 1 and 2 and master class. That's a licensed class with the ICRT. And in between, we'll be going whale watching. And sometimes the whales even join us in class. I have a hard time keeping the students' attention because they're right out the living room window. They start surfacing and they get a little bit excited sometimes when we are teaching Reiki there. They join us. And so the Tuesday night after the level 1 and 2, before the master class, we'll be actually going out on a sunset cruise, whale watching. Hopefully, Cork and Chevron, the two humpbacks that usually really like hanging out with us, will show up. They often show up for the classes and the people. And so that'll be really fun. And then the following week in August is the Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Master. Same thing. We'll go whale watching in between. So join us in August. Also in August, we have the International Reiki Retreat in Arizona. So if you're not already signed up, you can join that both online as well as in person. And it's always a great event. And then in October, I've got classes both online and in person here at the farm. And I should have mentioned that the whale classes are both online and in person. If you're not there in person, you probably can't come whale watching, though, which is sad. So, how about you, Brett? Anything you've got going on?
I do have my Reiki Master weekend happening at Omega Institute. I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but it's in the fall at Omega Institute. It's always a lovely time both to be at Omega, and it's just a lovely time in terms of, just that energy of Reiki that whole weekend on the beautiful grounds of Omega Institute, which I know you've been there
I've been
before.
there. I'm going again. I'll be there I'm there I have been there in July going to a conference, and yeah, love it.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely love seeing you there whenever you're there. And yeah, folks want to check out the Reiki weekend, so would love to see you there too.
Wonderful. And I'll put a link in the chat for anybody who wants to check that out. It is definitely worthwhile to go and work with Brett at Omega. It's just a beautiful experience. So, yeah. Before we go too much further, I'm just going to invite everybody to activate their Reiki energy by going into Gasho. And today's podcast is about just different tools that can deepen our experience with Reiki. One of the things that we know about Reiki is that the potential for connection with the divine is infinite. And so there's always opportunity for growth. And just take a moment now. We're over halfway through the year, and just reflect on your years so far. And are there any areas that you would like to expand and grow into? And you can just form an intention around that. And just allow some of the discussions, some of the information of the podcast, if it's appropriate, to help you move in that direction. Just allow yourself to receive it in a way that is significant for you. And we just take a moment to thank you for being here and for being the light that you are in the world. You are having an impact on the collective consciousness. Your growth leads to the growth, the frequency, the vibration of the planet. So thank you for showing up. Namaste.
Mm.
So, Brett, I wasn't going to ask you this, but tell us a little bit about all of your books. I've read some of them, not all of them, and you've had some really wonderful things come through Reiki, and then most recently this Reiki Divine Healing card deck. So, how did these ideas come to you? And just talk us through that evolution, if you would.
Sure, I'll kind of fast track through my healing journey and hit major points along the way. So, I first became introduced to Reiki in the early 1990s after having a very challenging dental experience, and got my first degree in 1993 from Elka Petra Palm, I believe she still teaches in New York City and is a member of the Reiki Alliance, and really enjoyed the class, enjoyed the teachings. A couple of years later, fast forward, I was the co-owner of a kind of a new agey bookstore in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and as part of the work we did, we were promoting a Reiki master in the area, and in exchange for that, she attuned me and my business partner to second degree. And then in 1995, I was seasonal staff at Omega Institute and had the great fortune of running into a woman named Mary Dudek, who I've lost track of her, so I don't know how to get in touch with her, but I know she had been trained not directly by William, but by somebody in his lineage. And so she initiated me to master level in 1995. And then shortly after that, I moved to San Francisco, began doing some Hawaiian shamanic studies with a man named Jack Gray, who was quite old and short and kind of reminded me of Yoda. Had a very interesting sense of humor. But he had also known, this is very interesting, he had known Hawaii Takata. And he said that he had actually been, he maybe this is not true, I don't know, but I have no reason to doubt it. He said that he kind of helped plant the seed in her head to move from Hawaii to San Francisco just because he thought her business would do better in a metropolitan area such as San Francisco. So he had a, now in my studies with him, I wasn't studying Reiki with him. I was studying some different Huna shamanic practices, but there was always this focus on the higher self. And I began to wonder, what if I intentionally attuned my higher self to Reiki, which was probably attuned when I got my first attunement anyway, but I just thought, let me just intend that so that I know that it's there. And then doing these different practices that I was learning from him, I realized, oh, there's things that I can do using this technique that I wasn't ever taught. And so a lot of those ideas eventually became my book, The Reiki Magic Guide to Self-Attunement, which that title was kind of changed by the publisher. So that really wasn't the title that I came up with, because self-attunement is really not the goal of the book. The idea in the book is that I'm sending attunements through time and space to whoever says particular phrases that are in the book. And then the book talks you through how to do self-treatment. So it's not a certification training, but it is a good way for people to learn Reiki if they're just wanting to use it on themselves and family, and to kind of, dive deeper into the practice. So that was my first book. And then a couple of years later, we came out with another book called Reiki for Spiritual Healing, which was more about, again, these ideas of working with the Huna shamanic higher self integrated with Reiki, and how I kind of blended that into these different techniques. And then I took a kind of a hiatus, because one for me actually, as I was finalizing the final edits of actually the Reiki Magic Guide to Self-Attunement, is I had this very powerful mystical experience that involved Mikao Sui. It happened when I was traveling in Asia. I was in the former royal capital of Laos, a place called Luang Prabang, with these beautiful Buddhist temples. And I got very sick, very ill. I had a fever. I had what felt like my spleen felt like it was inflamed, like the size of a small grapefruit or something. And all the guidebooks said, if you can avoid going to a Laotian hospital, it's probably best because it's more likely that you will come out of the hospital with something much worse than what you had going in. So I didn't want to really seek medical attention. I thought, well, this is the test to really put these skills to use. So I hid in my room for a couple of days and just did nonstop energy healing on myself. And then at a certain point, while I was doing that, there was a voice in my head that said, "Would you like a new spleen?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I'm not kidding you. Instantaneously, I felt fine. Like the fever dropped, the swelling was gone. And am I saying that a physical new spleen appeared in my body? No, but I am saying that there was some kind of instant transmutation that happened like in that moment. I was very hungry at that point. So I walked out. There was a small Indian food establishment not far from the guest house that I was staying at. And I remember I ordered a dish of aloo gobi, which is my favorite Indian food. And I sat down. It was, very chill outside plastic tables and plastic chairs. And so I'm sitting down and there's an empty plastic chair next to me. And suddenly I felt this amazing presence just appear in that chair. And I just knew instantaneously that it was the spirit of Mikao Sui. And it's not that I was looking for him or searching for him or anticipating this in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, whoa. And then from him, I felt this ball of white light go into the area of my heart chakra. And at that point, it was a very mind altering experience in the sense I didn't really understand everything that happened, other than I started to see things that lasted kind of in and out for a period of about 3 weeks, where I would have these very complex mathematical equations appear in my mind's eye. And I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell a complex math equation when I'm looking at it. But when I would see these equations, then I would also feel like that vast eternal presence that's in all things, that's in like, a spoon or a glass of water, that just kind of infinite divine presence. And it was just, that was going in and out for a couple of weeks. And I still had no idea what was this ball of light about, other than that I feel, I'm now in an altered state. And eventually I came to realize that that wasn't just a ball of light, that there was this energetic structure that was now in front of my heart chakra that I now refer to as the Reiki crystal. So if you could imagine Reiki that is crystallized, not into a physical form, but in an energetic form, and then put in front of my heart chakra. And I began to work with it. And I realized that if I simply spoke to it, either with my mind or my voice, that it would then send Reiki. And then I played with it more, and then it could do things with Reiki that I was not ever shown traditionally, like create shapes of Reiki, right? So I usually think of Reiki happening as a flow of energy. And yet this crystal could create shapes of Reiki, like pyramids or spheres, or also what I call a Reiki hologram, like it could create the energetic replica in the shape of your liver or your heart or whatever, and then put that into the liver or heart for, amplifying the healing. So it could do all these really interesting things. And so then it took me a while to kind of sit with it and write about it. So that eventually came out. The first book I wrote about it had a horrible title, which I totally take responsibility for. It's called New Reiki Software for Divine Living. And it came out from Anya Books, they're published out of England. That came out in, I think, 2013. And then I had some other books come out, which were on other energy healing modalities.
I will just say you shared that crystal with us at the Omega Reiki retreat this year, and it was profound. I loved it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I still use it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I still love working with it. And the cool thing about the deck that I'm going to dive more into deeply shortly is that each of the cards has their own Reiki crystal and is kind of programmed in a different way. So, but I'm going to go back to the line of books, and then I'll circle
Yes,
back. So,
please. There was a few other books after that.
yeah, so the book that came out after New Reiki Software for Divine Living was called Energy Healing for Everyone, which was about a different modality. And so backtracking back to 2007 is when the Reiki crystal came to me. There were also some other things that downloaded to me that same year. And so one of them was this energy that I call Light of the Eternal One, that has a connection to the ancient Essenes. And so it came out in this book called Energy Healing for Everyone. And the weird thing is I had no, when it came to me, I had no awareness that there was any connection between this energy and the ancient Essenes. All I knew, they're like, wow, this is really great energy. And I kept teaching it to the staff at Omega, and they seemed to really love it. It was very simple, very elegant system. And I wrote this book and I kept sending it to different publishers, and they were like, wow, we really like the book. Da, 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 da. Yeah, but we're not going to take it. I thought, well, that's really odd. I mean, I've had rejection letters before, but it's like, it's rare that you see people praising the book and then declining it. And I kept thinking something's off here. And so I decided to do some healing work with a shaman friend of mine, a woman named Nina Spiro. And this happened at Omega Institute. And we were in this building called the Hermitage, which is a residence that is there.
Okay.
And while we were in the Hermitage, we are on the balcony of the Hermitage. She's doing this session on me that is totally geared to find out what's behind this book not getting published. And this amazing presence just appeared. And she's like, well, you're sensing this presence. Who is it? Talk to it. And I said, this feels strange to me. I said, because I don't usually, most of the beings I work with, I don't associate with, biblical presence, but this being keeps telling me that it's Ezekiel. And okay. And she goes, what does Ezekiel have to say? And what Ezekiel told me was that this energy called Light of the Eternal One actually had a connection to the ancient Essenes, and that until I honored that in some way, shape, or form, the book was never going to be published.
Wow. Wow.
And
And of course we know that like for people, Jesus, his mother Mary, his grandmother Anna, they were Essenes.
yeah, yeah. So I just simply added a little blurb in the front of the book. this book, this. Oh, he also said that it was connected to a text that I've never heard about, and that probably will never be found. That there was a book called the Essene Book of Light, and that what I had channeled in was from that. Though I've, archaeologically, I've never seen any presence of anything like that, but I'm just trusting whatever he was saying. So yeah, so I put that little blurb in the book, and then boom, like a few weeks later, it got picked up by a publisher.
It
So
occurs to me there's a
I,
few
that is
books I
confirmation.
don't have. I need to pick them up, Brett.
I just took that as confirmation, like, okay, then there must be a connection with the Essenes. So then a couple of years later, I wrote a book called The Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing, which is again about that third modality that came in 2007 that I call Magical Awakening, that has a connection to ancient Avalon and Merlin, and it's very playful and magical and a very fun system. So that book explores the first three levels of that system. Again, it's not a certification course, but people can learn how to at least do the basics and have fun and do healings on themselves and friends, family, etc. And so then in was it 2016, I think, I kept feeling there was something incomplete about the first Reiki crystal book, the one with the horrible title. And I'm like, let me dive deeper into this. And so I wrote kind of if you want to call it a sequel, but it came out with a different publisher called Psychic Reiki. And to me, that really kind of crystallized like, oh, this is its own system, and it's called Psychic Reiki, and that's what it is. Whereas before that, I just called it the Reiki crystal, and there was no real connection to it being its own thing. And so yeah, so that was the 2017, I believe. And then I did write another book in 2021 that came out that was called Healing Racism Within. It was about using energy healing tools to address, racial disparity, both within individuals and also collectively in society. And, not going to go too much into my own story, but my own family, there was a lot of hardcore racism. And so in my own healing process, releasing that from my consciousness was part of my own work. And so I thought, why not share tools that had been helpful for me in that process? So that was called Healing Racism Within. And then the most recent is this deck that just came out in summer of last year, and the Reiki Divine Healing card deck. So I know that was a very long-winded answer to your question.
That was perfect. I really initially we were going to just talk about the card deck, and I thought, no, let's pull it all together here, Brett, because you've written so much, and I feel like the psychic Reiki. I feel like is that where things really took off? Because that book I know really took off for you.
Yeah. That one, I think it kind of established something about my work that the other books didn't quite do. And even though I love the other books, that one really, yeah, it kind of shifted things for me in a big way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when I was with you at Omega Institute. I'm trying to think. I think it was a few years ago, and we were with William Rand, and one of the girls said, like, I want to say hi to Brett, but I don't want to come off as a fangirl because I've read all of his books. And I'm like, I'm his biggest fan. And she was so nervous to say hello to you. And I said, oh, he's really nice. Just go talk to him. It will
Yeah,
be.
that's taking the holy fire with William, and you were assisting him. Yeah, I
That's
remember.
right. That's right. And that was actually where we met. And that was so much fun. But it was so cute. She said, could you introduce me or something? I don't want to creep him out because I'm such a fangirl. And I love that, Brett. That was amazing. So you sort of shifted gears. Like, I mean, so obviously Reiki is just a huge part of your life. Obviously, you're very connected with your guidance, with your higher self. A lot of this information is coming through new systems, and I know how that works. And it's a beautiful thing, that creativity. We talk about the different clairs, and I believe that creative people have clear imagination, which simply means that our imagination is open to receive these higher frequency energies. And I don't know about you, but even when I wrote the Reiki business book, and now as I'm writing animal communication, I'll go back and read some of it and think, well, that's really good. I wonder who wrote that. It just does not look familiar at all. So I don't know, did that happen to you at all in this process?
Well, I love what when you're tapping into that. What did you call it? Clear imagination or something like that. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I've often I really value that sense of imagination, especially when it comes to energy healing. And I often talk about what I call divine imagination, which to me is that place where the energy, like let's say you're doing a healing and you just get this intuitive sense of, oh, I should do X, Y, or Z, even though it may not make any rational sense at all. And to me, that's when you're in that place of playing with divine imagination. Like it's giving you these little creative prompts. And if you listen to it, usually what you're going to find on the other end of it is some spiritual gold. Like there's something really beautiful about that. So I love that we're on the same wavelength with that.
You've just described my sessions. A lot of people who book a session with me, I'm just like, oh, and now the energy's doing this, and now it's doing that. And I learn things just as I'm observing, what's happening in the energy. It's fascinating. So yeah. No, I love that divine imagination. I like that term too, Brett. So speaking of divine imagination, how was that shift like from going from books to a card deck? What inspired you? And then how is this card deck? I know um, card decks are a tool, and I can generally feel an energy in a card deck. And although mine is in Campobello, so I don't have it with me right now, I snapped yours up as soon as I saw it in the bookstore at Omega Institute because it has such a beautiful energy. So tell us about sort of, you know, what inspired that shifting gears, and then tell us about that deck and how it's different from other card decks.
Sure. So it feels like it was all really divinely guided. The what happened was I was doing a healing in Mount Kisco, New York, at a small healing center there. It was a group energy healing where people come, they just lie down, and I just kind of blast away at everyone who's there simultaneously. And at the end, a woman came up and she said, My name's Allison Di Nicola, and I work for US Games. And would you like to do a Reiki deck with us?" And I was like, "Oh,
Really?
yeah." And it was interesting because I said, yes, I would love to. And I said, I actually have a deck already, but it's not Reiki. So there is a magical awakening deck that was co-created with me and one of the other teachers. It's not that well known because it's not sold on Amazon. We had a few
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, we've had a few printed and we sell them here and there, but it's costly doing that, getting them printed, so they tend to be very expensive. It's a beautiful deck, but it's so I tried to get US Games to take that one. They're like, "What's Magical Awakening?" We don't know what that is. Do a Reiki deck for us.
They wanted Reiki.
Yeah,
Yeah. Fair.
Reiki.
That's
Actually,
fair.
glad they did because it inspired me to not just hand over something that had already been created, but to really look and, yeah, again, reimagine how could I not just do a Reiki card deck, but how can I do things in a different and deeper way than what I had done with the Magical Awakening card deck, right? So, and then they also said, we have some artists that we've worked with. Here's some websites you can look at, but you're also free to pick your own artist. And I looked at some of the websites they had shown me, and there was some interesting artwork, but I've also known a number of amazing artists at Omega Institute, and one of whom, the person who eventually did the deck, was a fellow named Ben Scheikowitz, who used to work with me at Omega, and he also ran the art hut at Omega, which is just there for seasonal staff, and he would lead classes in art for the seasonal staff. And as I was looking at some of his work online, I realized there were paintings he had already painted that, in my mind, would totally fit as some of the cards. So I'm like, okay, so if we do a 44 card deck, like 5 of the paintings already exist. So I'm like, plus I already know him, plus we can easily communicate, and he's the guy.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And there's one other interesting thing that I want to share related to that. And I'll pull up the first card that I'm going to show. Is, let me see. Can you see that
Yeah.
woman there?
Some
So
people will be on audio, so they won't see it. We'll describe it for them.
okay. Well, it's a painting of a woman named Amina Eagle, who used to work at Omega. And at Omega, she was so beloved, and in everyone just kind of looked at her as the embodiment of kindness.
She looks it.
Yeah. And so in the deck, she is the embodiment of the precept for kindness, right? And so she at that time, when we first signed the contract, she was in the hospital, and I reached out to her and I said, Amina, Ben and I just signed this deal with US Games, and it's going to be a Reiki deck. And this is one of the cards. See, this was already painted. He had already created this painting, Ben
Mm.
had. And I'm like, oh, that's the card for kindness. And so I asked her, would you be okay with us using your image for that card? I mean, the painting already existed. He had already made the painting. And she said, yes, I would love to. I'd be honored to. And then 2 days later was when she left this realm to continue her soul's journey. And so to
Wow.
me, again, that just felt like this, everything kind of lining up in this way that it's supposed to be. So I'm forgetting where I'm going now, but
No, that's okay. Like it's just that's really cool. We're just talking about sort of that transition from books to card decks and just how everything kind of magically fell into place. And
yeah,
that's how you know you're on the path, right, Brad? Is just
yeah,
things just kind of fall and those happy coincidences. I remember one of my first books on awakening was Celestine Prophecy, and it
mm,
it encouraged us to look at things aren't coincidence. Like this
mm,
is a higher knowing and a higher path. So you had all these beautiful coincidences come
yeah,
together
yeah.
that formed the deck. And so tell us a little bit more about the creation of it and then, how it's different from other decks.
Yeah. So one thing that's key to the deck that unless one has worked with psychic Reiki before, might sound a little like, huh? What are you talking about? Is that each card is empowered to its own Reiki crystal, which basically means there's 44 cards, and so each one is a healer. And you could think, well, how can an inanimate object be a healer? And this kind of goes back to my long, kind of wild and crazy energy healing journey. So for many years, I was, again, when I was working with the Huna shaman, I was always experimenting on things like, what can I do with Reiki that wasn't shown to me? Where's that edge that I can explore, that can just maybe somehow bring more light into the world. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I used to love to go to the beach. And in this one particular beach called Land's End, there were often these beautiful and amazing stones that were very smooth, but big, right? You know, like 8 inches long or so. And so I started collecting these stones, taking them home to my apartment, and I would attune the stones to Reiki. And then when I would want a session, even though my girlfriend at the time, she was attuned to Reiki, but she wasn't so much interested in doing sessions on me. So I would basically take these stones, lay on the massage table, and lay these stones on my body, and the healings were amazing. Right. So I'm like,
Totally.
okay, you can attune what we would think of as inanimate objects, even though I believe everything has divine spirit in it. So, like, to me, ever since then, I've played with this idea of attuning things, not just people or animals, but things, right? And finding ways to work with it in ways that the energy could flow. And so when I combine that with the psychic Reiki process, where there's this Reiki crystal, that if you think about it, right, if Reiki has intelligence to it, then a crystal that's made out of the energy of Reiki would also have an intelligence to it, which means that each card, the crystal that's in each card has an intelligence. So it can respond to what you are asking it to do, right? So it can respond to requests. And it can also be, and part of what I did is the co-creator of their deck, is I programmed each crystal that's in each card to have a very specific function, right? So some of them are, sending Reiki just to your chakras, and other ones are bringing you into meditations, and other have what I call Reiki portals, which is really just kind of working with that sense of divine imagination and the Hunchazation N symbol, Reiki portals to, different divine beings, angels, and avatars. And so that's how the deck was created, just kind of weaving all these pieces together, and then having this card of this deck of 44 cards where each one has the capacity to send Reiki to an individual or to a group of people.
Wow. I love that. And that's probably why. And one of the things I noticed in your book is you've got like different, draw this many cards and like this you've got some different layouts
Yeah.
of how you can. And so I tend to do that with them is
Mm-hmm.
take the layout and pull your cards. And it's always just really accurate for what I need at that moment in time. But I have to admit to you, I wasn't really aware of the crystal aspect of the card and what I was receiving. It always feels really good to
Yeah.
use them.
Yeah. So each card has its own crystal, and again, just kind of did to dive deeper into that process around it. Same is true of certain books, like both Reiki as well as New Reiki Software for Divine Living. All those copies of those books each has its own Reiki crystal in it, and that's how the empowerment is going through you, is through that crystal that's in the book. So yeah, so again, it's just a process I've been playing with for a long time.
That's really cool. And there's so much that we can do from a distance. So have you got, I believe there are different color suits in the deck.
Yes, there are. So
It's tied to
there's
different symbols, and we're not supposed to say the symbols out loud in case
yeah,
people listening aren't. But can you tell us a little about that?
there's four different suits. There's the suit of what I call Reiki's foundations, and I'll just show a couple of the cards. Of course, the first one is obviously Mikawa Sui. And this card has a Reiki portal in it that then connects you to his spirit or his energy, again, upon verbal request, which can be really good for when you're needing guidance before you teach a class or other, it's just nice. And I did it shortly before we came together online here and was just feeling his presence really, really strongly. And again, I'm not going to go through every card in that suit, but another one, again, when I think of Reiki's foundation, so there are, also other aspects of those foundations, including some of the work from my book. So this is a visual of the Reiki crystal, again, from one of the paintings from Ben Scheikowitz.
That's stunning. It's, for people listening, I'm sorry you can't see this, but definitely go on Amazon and check this out because that's a stunning visual.
And remember when I said some of the paintings he had created already existed? This painting already existed. And I was like, oh, he's already captured the essence of the Reiki crystal in his artwork. So those are a couple images from the suit of
Foundation.
Reiki's found. So there's
Mhm.
there's more in there. I'm not going to go into all of them. And then there's the Reiki meditations. I already showed you this one, which is on the precept for kindness. And here's another one, which is just, for inner peace. And again, with these particular cards, with the meditations cards, and I'll do a demonstration of these later. You actually just ask the card to bring you into particular meditation, whatever it is that's on the card. So this one is for inner peace. The next one is one of the cards that I've used the most in this deck is for forgiveness.
Mm.
And I have a story that I'll share on this, later. So yeah, there's different meditations that are in there. So there's self-love, there's all the different precepts, but there's also, strength, joy, and some other meditations that are in the meditation suit. And then there's also the suit of what I call avatars and divine beings. And that includes angels. So this is a painting of Archangel Michael. And again, in this, there's a Reiki portal to Michael. So Michael's energy will just like show up when you ask the card to bring it through really quickly. And there's also other, divine beings. Like we have Buddha here, so bring in that energy of Buddha.
Lord,
There's a Kuan Yin card here,
adore
and
her.
so there's also a Jesus card, and the Jesus one again. That's another one. Ben had already created this card before the deck was ever created. He had already created this painting. So when I say that
I
the
think
card,
Brett, I think he just knew that you were going to
yeah.
ask.
So again, I'm not going to go through every card in that suit, but with those, you just simply. It's not that they're bringing Reiki into the session; they're bringing the energy of that angel or avatar or saint energy into the session. So it's just kind of like an extra bonus. You can think of it that way, you know.
As I'm listening to you, this is fascinating because it's really something that I've used for myself so far.
Mhm.
But it occurs to me that this deck would be very useful to use with my clients as well.
You can certainly use it with your clients, and I have well, often now I can say this since the deck has come out. Before then, I had never done it, but I've been doing a lot of group healings using
Mhm.
the. So that, there might be 30 or 40 people, usually on Zoom, and we'll just I'll just be using the cards, not sending from me, but just asking the cards to send, and the healings go pretty deep. Um,
Wow.
and then the last suit is the suit of what I call Reiki treatments. And so that's where the energy is just focusing for a particular purpose. So this one is chakra Reiki. So that in this card is just going to send Reiki directly to all of your chakras, just to kind of help clear your chakras. Again, I'm not going to go through every card in this suit, but I will show this one. This is my favorite card in the deck, and it's called Reiki Dream Healing. And it's got a bit of a story behind it. So many years ago, when I was first at Omega, there was an amazing woman who was a shaman who taught there. Her name was Caroline. She's somebody
Oh,
who I really,
I've heard
yeah,
you speak of her.
yeah. And
Yeah.
she would teach these really wild dream classes that I've never seen anybody teach anything like it. And in the dream classes, it's not that we were interpreting the dreams. We were actually encouraged, please don't interpret the dream, but you would simply act out the dream. But you would act it out in beforehand. She would set up the space where she would, clear the space beforehand. She would also honor the four directions. She would do all kinds of shamanic work to bring in different beings. And as people were acting out their dreams, it was like the best way I can describe it is if you've ever been to like a constellation therapy session where
I,
people are
I've been
you,
to a horse constellation therapy, but
well, in constellation therapy, which was developed by Bert Hellinger, people will have what's called like a field of knowing. Like you'll be acting out not dreams, but you'll be acting out like the dynamics in somebody's family. I've actually done this before where I was, and this happened at Omega too, where I was playing the role of somebody's brother, right? And as I'm playing that role of somebody's brother, I suddenly became obsessed with my hair. And so in this process, you would just give voice to whatever's going on with you. And I'd say, I feel totally obsessed with my hair right now. She's like, yeah, that's my brother. He's totally obsessed with, and all these bits of information that you as the individual, no way you would know this, but you just start knowing all this stuff and voicing it. And then it gets processed in this very unique way. So in Caroline's dream class, not that she was doing family constellation therapy, it was like even deeper, because not only were people getting insights about, family members and stuff, but you would have angels and ancestors and all kinds of beings just showing up and really amazing healings happening. So she's taught me to teach that. And I teach it very rarely because even though I love it, it's exhausting to teach, holding the energy for all that.
yeah.
But what I found when I meditated with the Reiki crystal was I asked it, is there a way that you can kind of approximate this or kind of replicate this as an energy healing? And I got a yes. And so this card is the Reiki Dream Healing card. And the way you use it, unlike all the other cards, is you just literally hold the card and you tell it your dream that you want it to work on. And as you tell it the dream, it then starts to send, a variety of energies that relate to the healing that's related to that dream. So it's really wild. Uh,
Now,
again,
when
my favorite.
when you talk about dream, I just want to clarify, are you talking about a dream that I have that I would like
Yeah,
to have come true,
no,
or a
dream
dream that I
like you were sleeping.
like
Yeah,
as you were sleeping, or
yeah, like when you go to sleep and you dreamed of, oh, I dreamed of this. Like I've done some really cool things with some recent dreams ever since I've had this card, and I'll just hold the card and I'll talk to it, and I will just tell it the dream. Sometimes it can even be a fragment of a dream, like a little 3-second snippet.
Yeah, because I don't remember a lot of my
Yeah,
dreams.
you just tell it that snippet of the dream, and you just sit and you just let the card send you whatever energy. And I always try to get out of my mind, because often the healing it will send you may not seem that directly relevant for the dream, but that's also was very similar to Caroline's classes. Sometimes she would, you would do something, and in the dream world, things can morph from one thing into another very easily. So you would think the dream was about this, but it's actually totally about something different. And so anyway, like I said, that's my favorite card in the deck, and that's how you use that particular one. But the green suit is about different treatments that have different particular focuses, and there's focuses on karmic body healing, emotional body healing, there's dream healing, and some other techniques in there as well.
I gotta tell you that I feel like I'm getting a personal course right now, and I really like it. I'm like, I can't, I'm going to Campobello this afternoon after we're done talking. And I'm really excited to get to my card deck because now I feel like I know more how to use it. This is fantastic. So tell us, if someone is to get your deck, how would they get started, and how would you suggest that they use the deck for their own personal healing and growth and transformation?
Yeah, I mean, well, so there is a book that comes with the deck. I'll hold that. So this book comes with the deck, and it does have my own interpretations of each card in terms of what is energetically in each card, so that you have an idea of what each card can do. And there's also, towards the back of the book, there are different spreads that you can use. Like there's a daily healing spread. There's also a spread that I really love, which is for healing ancestral trauma, where you have one card that represents you, another one represents your father, and then your mother, and then kind of going down through each of their lineages. And I found that particular healing does really deep, deep healings. So there are different, layouts that are in the deck. And there are also, what I encourage in the book also is for people to create their own layouts. But I have to admit, what I've really loved the most is just playing with the cards, in the sense of like, pick what I do a lot now is I'll pick 3 randomly.
So that's what I do quite often.
I'll
I
pick
just, yeah.
I pick 3 randomly, and what I find is, because you know with in-person Reiki, right? The more people you have working on one person, the energy really amplifies, right?
Yeah.
I found the same is true with the cards. So what I will ask is, I will get usually 3 or more cards, and I will be very specific. I ask them to activate and to synchronize their energy, and to then send that healing out. And so you'll have this combination of energies from the different cards, and it just kind of really takes you to an amazing place. And this might be a good time for me to loop back into, remember earlier I said I was going to tell a little story about the forgiveness card, right?
Yes, I've been wondering about that.
So I was in an accident a few months ago, a car accident, and it was actually my fault. I mean, I hate to say that, but it was my fault. It was a moment when I was panicking, when I was driving, and did something stupid, and then the next thing I know is I've hit a car, and and I feel awful, and there was a lot of other extraneous issues behind what led up to that I'm not going to go into. But um, for me, it was all about, I want forgiveness. I want forgiveness for myself, but I also want forgiveness for everything that led up to that moment, and forgiveness, like the whole thing. Let's just forgive this. And so I used this card, and I don't remember what the other 2 were, but I put this card and 2 others on my altar. And for a couple of days, when I would get up in the morning, I would just say, cards, please activate and synchronize, and just send forgiveness Reiki to this whole situation.
Yeah.
And everything after that, I mean, not that I was happy to be in a car accident, but everything happened like so smoothly from that point forward. I mean, in terms of dealing with insurance, everything moved smoothly. In terms of not feeling like I was holding on to stuff, either shame or beating myself up about the accident, or no conflicts with the person who's like, there was nothing, even down to like, I kept thinking, oh wow, I'm going to get some big fat fine or whatever, and I didn't even get it. I mean, yes, it went through the legal process, but I didn't even get a fine. Like they, yes, I pled guilty, but there was no fine. Like there was nothing that happened. It was like everything was forgiven, right?
Wow.
So like I was like, wow, you know, what did I do? I took this card and two other cards and I put on my altar, and every day I would say, please bring forgiveness to this situation, bring that energy into forgiveness into all aspects of it. And it felt so just like a pure letting go of any sense of holding on to anything of blame of myself or others that again the surrounding situation. And so yeah, so again, that's just one card, but that's the story I wanted to share with you about
That's
the
lovely. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. I love it. I love it. And so actually, that was actually going to be my next question, a personal story or example of how people have used the cards. And do you have any more examples?
There's no specific ones that pop in my mind, but I will say a lot of times when I've done these group healings, I have had people really, really rave about them. Now, can I say what their specific thing that they mentioned was? I don't remember. I do know I did a demo at Omega Institute last September, and there happened to be a group of veterans there that were there doing deep trauma work, and they all came to my event.
Mhm.
And I remember them eventually they, on their own choice, made sure that the CEO of Omega knew how impressed they were with that healing that they got that was just from the cards, right? So again, they didn't tell it to me, but in a meeting that I had a few weeks later with the CEO, she goes, those vets were really impressed with whatever you did that night with your Reiki deck. I was like, whoa. And
Where
to
can
me,
I?
a lot when it's coming from folks who have been through war, who've been through, the kind of the worst things that life can send at you, and when they're raving about it. And there's also some nice comments on Amazon. Again, I'm not getting the specifics coming into my brain right now, but I've definitely had some very positive responses for sure.
Yeah, I love it, Brett. Like you can just feel the energy in it, and it just feels so pure and kind and lovely, and I love it. And that's what we're going to do today to wrap up. You're actually going to take us through one of those group experiences, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Should I do that now, or when's the good time to do that?
Just there's just a couple more
Sure.
questions.
Yeah.
Maybe just it, can you explain if somebody has something targeted that they want to heal, what would you recommend to them? How would they use the deck then?
Well,
Say
so I would. Yeah,
those friends, even those heroes that
yeah. That,
what
that, That's a really good question. And what I would say is you would first want to just probably read through the book so that you have an understanding of what each card does or what it's capable of doing. And
Mhm.
then when it's something like that, that's where I would usually, you know, follow my guidance to probably go through and pick specific cards that might, oh, this makes sense for this.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you can't also, leave things up to the divine and just pick some cards by chance, which I'm also always in favor of. But let's say I am remembering now one of the other cards that came with forgiveness, right? Which totally makes sense. I'm remembering this now. The Jesus card was one of the cards. Like, okay, that makes sense. So let's say it's forgiveness. Well, maybe you want to work with Jesus and the forgiveness card, or maybe you want to work with, Buddha or something else. Or maybe you're feeling that energy of forgiveness is being really held deeply in some of your chakras. So then you bring in the chakra card as well. So I really encourage people to, again, get to know the cards, and then you want to, from there, then use your wisdom of like, oh, well, this will help with this, and then combine it. And then what I always say is I ask the cards to activate and synchronize so that they're working together, and then to send the healing to whoever or whatever it might be.
I love that. And I do love you do have a lot of information in the guidebook. It's really well written. So how what would you tell people about using the guidebook? How would you recommend that? Like so far, I mostly just choose random
Yeah,
things and then look them up is what I've been doing. So,
I would say, make a point to try to read the guidebook.
mm,
Just read it just so you have a sense of, oh, well, I haven't picked this card yet, but I see that it does X, Y, or Z. Or, oh, I didn't think of this particular spread that's offered in the back. Let me try that out. But
mm,
don't feel that once you've read the guidebook, don't feel like it's a rigid code that you have to stay in, right? So don't feel like, oh, Brett didn't write about that in the guidebook, therefore I can't do it. No, I really encourage people to play with the cards, come up with your own spreads, come up with your own combinations, and just see where things will tell you will take you. And there's also some people, even though it's not created as a divination deck or as a tarot deck, like even though I have a lot of experience with tarot, that's not the intention behind the deck. But I have heard some people say that they have kind of used it in that way, to have the deck help bring them guidance about what their next steps are in terms of the near future, things like that. And there's one woman who keeps contacting me. It's a deep connection to Saint Germain. Saint Germain's in the card, in the deck as well. And she says almost every time she pulls, she'll randomly shuffle and whatever, and almost every time Saint Germain pops up. And she's had a connection to Saint Germain long before she got the deck. So again, I just find all these kind of synchronicities to be very interesting.
They are. He looks kind of like you, Saint Germain, in the picture, Brett. So yeah, that's really cool. And then, so just last question before we go into an actual healing with
Yeah.
this is, if somebody's using this in their sessions or in their journeys, their own personal journeys, do you have any more advice for them around that?
I just say, really, I'm always a fan of just listening to your own guidance. And so if you're using in a session and you have a sense of like, oh, I need to use this card, or maybe even I need to set this card under the person's head as they're lying on the massage table, or whatever guidance you might get, I'm always a fan of following that inner voice, and letting it take you where it will. And other than that, I would just say, just remember that, look at them as having 44 different healers that are with you. And so that can bring a lot of extra energy into a session, whether it's for yourself or for somebody else.
I love the idea of putting them on your altar and asking them to work with you for the day, or you could also place them within your Reiki grid, I'm assuming, and ask them to continue sending and continue working for you. So I think I am going to incorporate that myself. I like you always say synchronize
I
and
activate and synchronize,
sorry,
to
activate and
activate their energies and to synchronize their energies, so that whatever cards you're using are kind of kicking their energy up and bringing them together to meld together as one unified healing.
and work together. I love that. Yeah, thank you, Brett. Is there anything else before we move into our healing session today?
Nothing I can think of other than, I've had a lot of really positive responses from people about the deck. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share about them. And if people do buy the deck, I try to be pretty responsive to messages on Facebook or email through my website. So always feel free to reach out and share a story or ask a question. I try to be pretty available if I can.
Thank you, Brett. That's wonderful. And I think what I'll do is I will actually put a link for the deck in Amazon, and both Amazon in the US and in Canada for people that are listening. And I'm sure it's probably available in Australia and Europe as well.
Yeah, I think most places that have Amazon, you can get it. And then I know also that US Games, they do distribute, worldwide. And so wherever you are in the world, there's probably a way to get it, even if Amazon isn't there for some reason.
It's wonderful. Thank you. And so yeah, let's go ahead and see what the cards have in store for all of us who are listening.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Let me start. Let me figure. I'm going to start with just doing some meditations, and then we're going to go deeper from there. So I'm going to just bring this card up and asking this card to bring everyone who's watching this or listening to this into a Reiki meditation for deep stillness and inner peace. And as that's occurring, I'm also going to bring through the card of the Reiki crystal, and I'm going to ask this card to send Reiki to your brain and nervous system, while this card will still bring you into Reiki meditation for stillness and inner peace. And I bring in what I call the Reiki sphere of divine grace, which is a beautiful energetic structure. If you could imagine a beautiful bubble or egg filled with Reiki, totally enveloping you on all levels. So I'm asking these three cards now to activate and synchronize and just send a wave of healing light out to you now. just kind of let that unfold for a couple minutes while I pull up the next few rounds of cards. In these next cards, we have Reiki for cosmic awakening, we have the chakra Reiki, and this is what I call Reiki lasers, where they're like intense beams of Reiki light between any 2 points in time and space. And usually with this card, the Reiki laser card, I need to specify where those lasers are going. So for this healing, I'm going to ask the Reiki lasers to connect, running from each and every bone in your body to each and every other bone in your body for everybody who's listening or watching this program, and asking these 3 cards to now activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. And as they're doing that, I'm going to put them down and bring some more cards in. So we've got the card for the avatar Neem Koli Baba, who was the kind of the spiritual force that guided Ram Dass, for those of you who are familiar with Ram Dass. There's also a tool in Psychic Reiki called the Universal Reiki Healing Grid, and there's also the Reiki treatment for spiritual heart opening. And so I'm asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. And I'm just going to pick another 3 cards here. I've got the Archangel Metatron, I've got Jesus, and I've got Karmic Body Reiki. I'm going to ask these 3 cards to activate and synchronize and send a wave of healing light out to everyone who's watching or listening to this now, at the moment that they're watching or listening to it. I'm going to bring through a few more cards here. And we have emotional body Reiki, we have Reiki for clearing unwanted energy cords, and we have a cellular meditation for healing and perfect health. I'm asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. Just going to grab a few more cards here. These next 3 cards, we have Archangel Raphael, we have a Reiki meditation for strength, and we have etheric body Reiki. And I'm asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. And for the next 3 cards, I'm going to bring in the precept just for today, I will not anger. Also the card for Reiki organs and organ systems healing, and also the card for the hugging Saint Amma to bring her energy into the healing, and asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you. And then the next 3 cards I'm bringing through the Reiki precept just for today, do not worry. Also bring in the energy of the Archangel Michael, and also the energy of Mother Mary, and asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. For the next wave of light, we've got the mental body Reiki. We've got the precept just for today, I will make my living honestly. And we have Archangel Gabriel. So asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. I'll do maybe 2 or 3 more. Bring the healing to a close. Asking these cards, I'm going to bring in the cards for Kuan Yin and Buddha, and also for joy, meditation for joy, and asking these cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. And bringing in 3 more cards just for today. Be grateful. Just for today, I'll be kind to every living thing, and also Reiki meditation for self-love. I'm asking these 3 cards to activate and synchronize and send their healing light out to you now. And then I'm going to do one more of a batch of 3, and then I'm going to finish with the dream healing card, because I just thought that would be fun. So we have Saint Germain again. We have the card from the Kawasui, and we have the card for forgiveness. And so asking these 3 cards to activate and synchronize their energies to send the healing light out to you now. Now there are other cards that we're just not going to have time to get to, but I do want to end with this card, which is the Dream Healing card. So for this one, I know some of you are just listening and not able to see it, but just pretend you can see it. Because again, the Reiki crystal in each card has Reiki. It's created from Reiki. So it has that deep divine intelligence of Reiki. So it's going to know what you're thinking, what you're asking of it, even if you can't see it. And if you can see it, even easier. So my invitation now is just to tune into the card, either visually if you can see it, or internally if you can't see it. And just tell it either part of a dream or a full dream. You don't need to think about interpreting the dream. Just tell the dream as though you're telling a story of whatever happened in the dream. And as you tell that to the card will send you a very unique healing to you, based on what it feels you need based on that dream. I'll go ahead and just set the card down. And for some of you, that healing may still be unfolding, so I'll just hold some space for that. And again, there are more cards than I showed visually. I just wanted to at least show you a good number of them, and I hope you enjoyed the experience. And I just want to thank you, Pam, and also thank everyone who's listening for this opportunity to share about these cards.
Oh my gosh, thank you for creating them, Brett. I'm still buzzing. That was a lot. That was a lot, and I could just kind of feel each time you would bring 3 more cards in, I'd feel a new wave and a new wave, and I think it might be unfolding for a while, actually. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to integrate, but I could just feel the beauty in that, the intention, the energy of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And like Brett, I just want to thank each and every one of you who are listening. I hope you may still be buzzing like I am. I'll just allow that to continue integrating. I feel so honored and blessed that we got to work with you with this deck, and just really, I have read through a lot of the guidebook, but this just really helps me understand it on a different level, Brett. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everyone listening, thank you for shining your light in the world. You are making a difference. So keep on, keep on shining brightly. Keep on working to spread this light within you and around you. And it will bring about the enlightenment of the planet. So thank you. Namaste.